Hey everyone, Cowabunga here, and today I'm finally doing some Super Smash Bros. Content because I was recently inspired by a live stream from Source Gaming where they tried to come up with a roster for a new Smash game. I'm not planning on doing the same thing, but what I am doing is similar and just as interesting in my opinion. What would my roster for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate look like? If you are new to this channel, do give the video a like and subscribe because I'm officially 3/4 of the way to becoming monetized on YouTube. Thank you for 750 subs, by the way. This is your reward. Now, I'm gonna put down some ground rules before I begin. I've decided to do two versions of my roster. One where we keep the everyone is here aspect of Ultimate, which means that I can only modify which newcomers get into the game, and I have done a roster where the everyone is here gimmick does not apply, which means I can get rid of and replace veteran characters as well. If I get rid of an Echo fighter, I can replace them with an Echo, and if I get rid of a semi-clone, I can replace them with a semi-clone. If I remove a regular character, I get to replace them with any character of my choosing. I will, however, try to be realistic with my choices based on how likely it would be to get the character and what time frame the character is from. So, for example, I can't add a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 character to the roster because that game did not exist while Ultimate was in development. So with all that being said, let's finally get into the fun part of the video. First, we will start with the Everyone is Here roster, where I can only modify which newcomers get into the game. Let's go over all the newcomers Super Smash Bros. Had and decide which one should stay and which one should be replaced. I want to talk about the Echo Fighters first. I wouldn't replace any of the ones that we got, however I'd like for some of them to not just be reskins with different voices. Daisy, for example, shouldn't have the ability to float just to differentiate herself from Peach, plus it just feels right for Peach to be the only character to use the float. To make up for it, she can be slightly more powerful than Peach. I'd like Dark Samus to have one or two different moves, but be the same otherwise. Just bring in some things she did as an assist trophy. Stuff like this should help the Echoes stand out a bit more from their counterparts and aren't huge time-consuming changes to me. Some Echoes like Ken, Chrom, and Lucina are fine as they are now, since they pretty much are vastly different from their counterparts in some significant way. As for newcomers, the first one revealed for Smash Ultimate was the Inkling, and they get to stay. Splatoon is a huge Nintendo franchise that absolutely deserves to be represented in Smash. Ridley is next and he gets to stay too. Metroid at the time of Smash Ultimate's development was an underrated franchise that desperately needed some more representation in Smash, and Ridley was an infamous character in the Smash community due to the debates about his size, so him being in there is a big deal. Now we talk about Simon and Richter. And here's how I'd handle their inclusion. I personally think that Richter should be the default character. Why? Because Simon and Richter's movesets are based mainly off of what Richter can do when he's a playable character in Castlevania. There's nothing Simon could do that Richter couldn't, so Richter is chosen to be the main representative of Castlevania in my roster. But don't worry, Simon is an echo of Richter instead of the other way around. I think the reveal trailer would make more sense this way too. Show Richter off first, and everybody will ask, who is this dude? Then as he fights Dracula, he gets saved by Simon. I'd like Richter to be a slightly faster version of Simon with slightly better frame data at the cost of less knockback on his moves. I'd also like Richter to have holy water that moves along the ground but doesn't last as long as Simon's. Okay, the next character revealed for Smash Ultimate was King K. Rool, and he gets to stay. He is an extremely popular request that was executed to near perfection. What more could you ask for? We are also keeping Isabelle. Animal Crossing New Horizons was on the way, so it makes sense for Isabelle to be here. And finally, I am also keeping Incineroar. I juggled in my head whether or not I wanted to replace Incineroar with Decidueye or any other Pokemon, and while I think Decidueye has a much cooler moveset than Incineroar in theory, I think Incineroar ended up feeling pretty fun to play, and he covers an archetype that is iconic in fighting games, the Grappler. Now we move on to Piranha Plant, everybody's favorite WTF character. As much as I love Piranha Plant's inclusion, I feel like he is way out of place for what this game is meant to be, which is a celebration of video game history and the Smash Bros. Franchise as a whole. I know it's the point that he's completely out of place, and that's what makes it funny, but in a perfect world, I would have picked a different Mario character.
Waluigi time!
That's right, as my first replacement, I'm putting Waluigi in my roster over Piranha Plant. Waluigi has been a highly requested character for Smash Bros. Since his appearance as an assist trophy in Brawl, and the fact that he's just kept continuing to be an assist trophy is a real shame. It really does feel weird to have Mario, Luigi, and Wario in the game without him, and it's especially weird to me that Daisy is also in there and he's not. Granted, Daisy is a much easier character to make, but Waluigi would have been worth the extra time to add to be a representative of Mario's spin-off games. If he was a pre-order bonus like Piranha Plant was, I'm sure the community would have been really excited for it. Now we move on to Smash Ultimate's DLC, and the first character in the first Fighter Pass was Joker from Persona 5. This was a tricky one for me, because Persona 5 really is a masterpiece of a game in so many ways, and its representation in Smash is not unwarranted. In terms of sales, Persona 5 is by far the most successful game in not just the Persona series, but the Shin Megami Tensei series as well. Shin Megami Tensei is supposed to be, the primary series, but Persona 5 basically turned that upside down. With all that being said, I personally feel like Joker was not a pick that the majority of the fanbase wanted going into Ultimate. I think he grew on all of us, but again, in a game like this where you really want to prioritize fan service over anything else, we would have gotten a character who was more requested. And that's why I've replaced Joker with Rayman. Rayman was a highly anticipated potential character pick that never made it in. I think it was absolutely possible for Rayman to be included in Smash Ultimate because Nintendo worked with Ubisoft to make Mario and Rabbids. No, I would not include a Rabbit instead. That's silly. You can still promote Mario and Rabbids with Rayman's inclusion anyway, so it's a win-win. I think Rayman has the potential to be a really interesting character in so many ways. He's not your typical Scrimbo Bimbo. He's from an imaginative world and has no limbs, with many games to take inspiration from. He got robbed by the Phantom Thieves, for sure. The next character from the first Fighter Pass is Hero, and he gets to stay. Dragon Quest is a highly influential series, and beyond popular in Japan, Hero's inclusion was a very big deal. And hey, so was Banjo and Kazooie's, so they get to stay too. They are the second most requested character for Smash overall, and a big part of Nintendo's history. There's no way the Bear and Bird duo are going anywhere. The next character on the list is Terry. I think that while Terry is not from an extremely popular franchise, I do see how King of Fighters and Fatal Fury influenced Sakurai and Smash Bros. In general. I think its overall influence on fighting games cannot be understated. And highlighting the Neo Geo and the competition of fighting games at that time through Terry's inclusion is cool. For me, I had to wonder if compromising this was really worth it. I really liked the idea of Ryu and Ken being able to fight Terry in Smash, and when I looked to other more popular fighting game franchises like Mortal Kombat for example, I did see a problem. When Sakurai does do presentations or reveal trailers for characters, he does like to reference and show the source material a lot. If a character used guns, and I mean actual guns, not the guns Joker or Bayonetta uses, it could have consequences on the game's age rating. The same thing could potentially apply for characters who come from some brutal, gory games. As much as I wanted to add characters like Scorpion, Doom Guy, Dante, Leon Kennedy, etc., I feel like they do lose their identities a bit if they can't represent the more mature parts of their games. Anyway, because of this, I've decided to keep Terry as a character. I looked into other fighting game characters that could be represented, and none of them were quite as iconic as Terry to me. I could have, not picked a fighting game character altogether, but but I didn't see a game or genre that really needed to be represented in the roster very badly. I did actually think about adding Dr. Eggman in over Terry, but decided against it just to include some more companies into the game. And now we have everybody's favorite final DLC character, Byleth. As much as I would love to replace Byleth with Monster Hunter, I do not think that is a realistic thing to do. It would be much better for Nintendo to pick one of its own franchises to be represented over Monster Hunter, which at least has Rathalos in the game as a boss already. Representing 3 houses in Smash was important and needed to happen, and all things considered, Byleth is a decently fun character and not an overly offensive pick by any means. Before I move on to Fighter Pass 2, I would actually like to rearrange the order in which the fighters appeared in the first Fighter Pass because putting Byleth dead last left fans with a bad taste in their mouths at the time. I'd put Terry up first. He can be a good starting point for DLC. Hero and Banjo would be next as they were before, and then I would add Byleth next, making Rayman the last character in the DLC pass. Rayman is a popular enough pick for people to really be happy about him being the last one in there. Ideally Banjo would be the last one, but he and Hero got revealed at E3 and that is a pretty big deal and I don't think I want to change that. Okay, let's talk about the first DLC character in Fighter Pass 2, Min Min. For me, I don't think Min Min's inclusion to Smash was necessary. It's fine. Min Min is a unique character, but ARMS had content in Smash already in the form of the Springman Assist and the Mii costumes. I also think that even though ARMS did sell well, it had its time in the sun, and I don't see a sequel coming along in the near future even now. So instead of focusing on a franchise that had decent representation already, but no clear future, I've replaced Min Min with a character who is from an IP that could have benefited much more from Smash marketing, and it could have secured a future for itself with Smash representation. I replaced Min Min with Officer Howard from Astral Chain. Astral Chain was a cool action game made by Platinum Games, the same developers of Bayonetta, so I'm sure they wouldn't have minded being guaranteed more money with another one of their games being represented in Smash. I think Officer Howard would be a really unique character. There's a Rivals of Aether mod that does a great job at showing their potential as a fighter. With Astral Chain, I don't see the game being a one and done. The games have the chance to continue with different characters, new gimmicks, etc. So bringing in the protagonist of the first game into Smash just helps a successful game become even more successful. Now, I don't want to keep you guys any longer than I have to, so I would just say that the rest of the Fighter Pass 2 characters get to stay. There's representation of many cool games and characters for the rest of the pass, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. So now I can talk about a roster where the Everyone is Here slogan was never introduced. Smash Ultimate in this version of the roster would still not include some characters from the past entries into the game. For me, this is my ideal roster for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Let's first talk about the characters that I decided to cut. I have cut Dr. Mario, Pichu, Young Link, Corrin, and Bowser Jr. The cuts to Dr. Mario, Pichu, and Young Link means that I get to choose 3 semi-clones to add to the roster. Before I pick who I'd replace them with, let me explain why I cut Corrin and Bowser Jr. Corrin was the latest Fire Emblem character during Smash 4's development, and it's understandable why he was added. But with Byleth eventually being added into the roster as a representative of the latest Fire Emblem game, his spot on the roster is not necessary to me. At worst, we'll miss Corrin's pin move. Other than that, he didn't really offer anything too special, in my opinion. With Bowser Jr., I just feel like he's an underbaked character. That's how he felt in Smash 4, and there really wasn't anything done to make him much better in Ultimate. Plus, if you look at the villains that are represented in Smash right now, I do not think that Bowser Jr. is on the same league as all of them. I do think that Bowser Jr. has a lot of unrealized potential, but as he stands now, I really wouldn't miss him if he was gone. I feel like there are better character choices than him, and maybe he'd have some better luck in another Smash game. So I have 2 character slots along with 3 semi-clone slots. Let's start with the semi-clones. I would replace Dr. Mario with Dixie Kong. Dixie Kong is another rep for the Donkey Kong series. I think Dixie is more relevant than Dr. Mario and would probably be more fun to play as too. She could be slightly faster with less knockback, with a gumball gun and a new hair cyclone up B. I am replacing Pichu with Shadow. Shadow could be another Sonic rep, and it does make sense for it to happen, seeing how Street Fighter and Final Fantasy ended up with 2 reps as well. Shadow would be a bit slower than Sonic, but have some more power to him. He'd have a new side B, thank God, that just acts like a simple projectile, the Chaos Spear. He should also have a teleport up B. Other than that, his moveset doesn't need to change too much from Sonic's. You know, just kind of make the animations a bit different. Maybe add some multi-hits since he has some rocket shoes. And I think we'd be good to go. Finally, my last semi-clone replacement actually plays into a character replacement as well. You see, I've always thought about Ganondorf's representation in Smash. Him just being a semi-clone of Captain Falcon to this day is a travesty. I know a good chunk of the community agrees with me on that. Ganondorf got better in Smash Ultimate, but to me he still isn't good enough. So I've decided to cut Corrin in favor of putting development time into making Ganondorf feel more like Ganondorf. There's been plenty of mods and fan games that have tried to do this very thing, but the main stuff I would like to see added are more attacks using 2 swords, not just 1. I'd like to see Dead Man's Volley as a neutral special, and maybe more representation of things he's done as Pig Ganon. I haven't really thought about it too much, and I would like to keep some of that old Ganondorf DNA, because he is fun as an ultra powerful, slow character, but man, he does need some neutral tools, and hopefully giving him a projectile helps him out. Now, some people would probably be sad that the old Ganondorf is gone, but fear not. I'm going to add a semi-clone of Captain Falcon that would play just like Ganondorf used to, and that's Black Shadow. He can be a representative of the newer F-Zero games and fill in the void that new Ganondorf would leave behind. All that is left to reveal is my replacement for Bowser Jr. And for me, the only answer is... Bandana D. Yeah, that's right. My bias is showing loud and clear here, but I do think that Bandana D, not being a playable character in Smash, when he has been tagging along in the Kirby games as a playable character for years now, is crazy. I've really liked his interpretations in SSF2 and Brawl mods, where he not only uses his spear ability, but also the beam and parasol abilities too. It makes sense, and the more Kirby abilities represented, the better. With that being said, here is my full, idealized Smash Ultimate roster. Who would your roster be? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching all the way through. As an award, I want to let you guys know that I do want to do another video like this in the future, this time for a theoretical new Smash game. I've decided that it would make for a great 1,000 subscriber special, so if you want to see that video and are not subscribed, please do. I've put a lot of time and effort into this video, and you'll get much more stuff like this if I become monetized on YouTube. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.